Hello, if you've been before, welcome back. If not, hi, my name is David. I make videos talking about media that I want to talk about. This is my reading wrap-up for the month of May. I'm doing this a little differently to ease in editing because at the end of this month, my boyfriend and I are going on a vacation, so I'm going to be doing the intro at the same time. Usually, if you've been before, for the reading wrap-ups, watch wrap-ups, I record the first half in half of the month, and then the latter half will be the intro and the outro along with the latter half. That way it stays a little consistent. But like I said, to ease editing a bit more, just gonna do the intro now. I'm joined today by my emotional support of Reilly Kyoko from last month and introducing Sandy, the avatar of the hunt. I've had Sandy for a long time. This was one of my first plushies, and I just love sharks, so we have our emotional support. And I'm in a different setup. I'm trying new things. We're moving stuff around in our apartment, so gonna try this for this month. We'll see how it goes. And since I'm recording this without knowing how the month is ending, I don't know how many books I've read. So far, I will be talking about 8 books in total. And obviously all the books will have in the time code below, so if you want to skip around, you're more than welcome to. And without further ado, the first book that I read in the month of May is Gabriel Garcia's The General in His Labyrinth. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, I've read 100 Years of Solitude, absolutely love 100 Years of Solitude, and Gabriel Garcia Marquez is a famous Colombian author. I myself am Colombian. I should read more of his. This is so far the second book that I've read of Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And this is about Simón Bolívar, who is basically the George Washington of Colombia, or most of Latin America. I think it's Venezuela, Bolivia, and Colombia, and Panama were liberated from the Spanish by Simón Bolívar and his revolutionaries. This book, I'm not entirely sure if it's specifically labeled as a biography or if it's historical fiction. It's kind of a mixture of both. It is a telling of Simón Bolívar's last months before he dies. I gave this a 4 out of 5. I really liked the beginning. From the beginning, I kind of thought it was going to be a 5 out of 5. As I kept going, it has a very dreamlike, very labyrinthian type of prose. We're always coming back to the same thing, and it sort of reflects Simón Bolívar's cycle of life towards the end of his life, where he keeps wanting to leave and not participate in the politics of the region anymore. He used to be the president, but he is growing old in age. The goals of what he wanted to do politically and as a nation have gotten away from him. Other people have power that he does not support. He has a lot of popular power and still a lot of military power, mostly because of name recognition and stuff like that. But he keeps saying he wants to leave the presidency, wants to leave politics, live out his last few days in peace. But things keep happening that keep dragging him back into the fold of politics, from different skirmishes that happen because of different nations that want to incur the breakup of his Latin country into Bolivia, Colombia, and Venezuela has thrown a wrench in things. And so their prose of it reflects how labyrinthian Simón Bolívar's life at the end of his life is. He keeps, like, his famous last words are, "How will I ever get out of this labyrinth?" dealing with other political things happening close to when he dies. And he manages to go, this story encompasses when he goes from the capital of Bogota, which is in the mountains, all the way to the coast, where he was supposedly going to take a boat to Europe so he can rest in Europe. But he ends up dying. Spoiler alert, I guess, because this is set in 1830, that's it. The last voyage of Simón Bolívar. Sorry, it's not Bolivia, it's Ecuador. Venezuela, Colombia, and Ecuador that are, I don't know my Latin American history, I'm sorry. Like I've mentioned, a lot of interesting themes, and the premise, this is the last few months of his life, is really good. And there were parts where I was a little bored, mainly because of the dreamlike prose. And overall, it's a lot of things that I didn't quite understand because it's a lot of history about Colombia that I unfortunately don't know about. But I still enjoyed reading this book. I found it and a handful of other short novellas by Gabriel Garcia Marquez for dirt cheap at a used bookstore, so I bought all of them. I bought the ones that I saw. And so this was the first of those. I will eventually talk about the other ones. Okay, I turned the light on in the back, so there's a little bit of backlight. I kind of like it better now. It's not that dark in the corner. The next book that I read was not part of my tarot TBR, but I added it onto it because of the Star Wars readathon that I wanted to participate in, the May the Force Read With You readathon. I keep saying readathon. I made a video talking about what I was doing for that. You create a character based on the TBR to be able to both read 3 books in 1 week, and also there was a prompt that you had to pick 3 random letters and read a book based, or the title has to be one of the first of those letters. So I read 11 by Patricia, Reilly, Giff. This is a book that I had to read for the Sunshine State Books in Florida in 2008. And I remember the title, I remember the cover. I read it, I'm pretty sure I read it. I didn't remember most of it. So this is technically a reread, but I was really young back then, elementary school. So practically the first time. And it's about Sam, who begins to believe that his grandfather is not actually his grandfather. He lives alone with his grandfather, and he finds some evidence that might suggest that he was actually kidnapped as a child and is being raised by his kidnapper. And so he's trying to figure out, is that true or not? He's also in elementary school. He's 11 years old. He just turned 11. There's a lot of recurring symbolism around the number 11 that doesn't really pay off, but it's interesting that it's there. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I think the prose was really interesting for a kid's book because it was very sharp and very, it's hard to explain. I haven't read anything like this in a hot minute, but it's very much like non sequiturs and one-lines and vague allusions to different things, and a very interesting type of prose for a children's book to have. I think I didn't quite connect with it because there were moments where big important moments that were connected to real life places and geography, like rivers and famous buildings, mainly in the Northeast, like Virginia area, I believe. And those moments were really important, but I didn't really get any of it because I don't know what I'm looking at. And the description is not enough for me. The description given was not enough for me to understand what it is that I'm seeing that is so important to the story, because those locations are very important to the author who included it within the story, I assume. And I was missing that emotional aspect and that connection to these important landmarks, so I didn't really connect it because of that. But at least it was a really quick read and really interesting. Like I said, the 11 imagery doesn't really go anywhere, but that's fine if it's not, The next book that I read was The Monster Bearer Cormorant by Seth Dickinson, which is the second book in the Masquerade series, which began with The Traitor Bar Cormorant. Again, I am reading this every other month, that I'm not reading the Poppy War trilogy every other month. Both of these are trilogies. And so last month I talked about The Burned God. Last month it was Dragon Republic. Next month it'll be The Burned God. And then the month after that will be The Tyrant Bar Cormorant, the third book in the series. I believe, from what I've seen, it is not a trilogy in that the fourth book has not come out yet, but I don't know when the fourth book is coming out. I'm not sure. Well, this is a 5 out of 5 for me. It was amazing. It expands the world that the Masquerade is in, and Baru's world herself, because in the Trade of Bar Cormorant, it was just focused on one country, where the traitor bar Cormorant had to be the traitor bar Cormorant. And now that she has advanced into the advisor level for the Emperor, which here there is no actual Emperor. Whoever is sitting at the throne is actually a figurehead that has been lobotomized and is being controlled by an oligarchy, basically. I believe it's like a group of people controlling, right? And Baru, the mentor that she had at the beginning of the first book, is also part of that. And then a handful of other characters that we met in the first book are also part of this advisor group for Falcrest, which is the enemy empire. And the big thing about Falcrest is that it does a lot of eugenics and hates other cultures, hates queer cultures, hates other races. And so they're very monocentric, monoculture, trying to take control and colonize different locations. So big bad, you know what I mean? And Baru wants to take down Falcrest. And in this book, she is tasked with other members of the this advisor circle. They never given a name. Actually, I think they should have a name. But each of them have a specific name. Like she is called Agonist. She called herself Agonist. We have Apparator. We have Itinerant. We have Durance. We have Hesychast, I'm not sure. And then Stargazer. Have not met Stargazer yet. And then I forgot who there's like an enforcer. I don't remember the name. They don't show up, but they are like the enforcer of these advisors that Baru has to worry about. And so Itinerant and Hesychast task Baru, Apparent, and Durance to go and try to find a group of people that they can use to start a civil war within the country that Falcrest wants to colonize. And so this is like a naval story where they are popping to different islands. Each section, like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, is named the Fall of Blank, and it's the location that they go to, because everywhere they go to, something bad happens, which is really fun. There were times to me that it felt similar almost to Game of Thrones in that compared to the first book, the Traitor Bar Cormorant was just within Baru's own point of view. Here we expand exponentially. We have multiple different points of view from multiple different people, even people that are not currently in the action but will become important later. I assume in the third book or towards the end of this book, that it began to feel a little bit like Game of Thrones in that there's now so many different players. But it's really interesting because this is such a Baru-centric story, and a lesson Baru had to learn in the first book was that she keeps thinking that people are just like chess pieces, and she doesn't expect them to do anything, but in reality, many people are plotting different things, and we see that in action. And because we see so many different agendas starting, seeing Baru, we want her to succeed. We want to find this group of secret magicians, sorcerers, to be able to succeed in her mission alongside whatever else all these agendas are doing. And that's really fun. It's like I said, with the three different acts, 3 different locations. It's great pacing, great plotting as well. The cut up of different points of view sometimes also changes how it's written. The prose style in terms of tense and point of view is so good. Like whenever it's Durance, it's in first person, and most of the entire story, Traitor Bar Cormorant, has been in third person limited. And now we're not only going omniscient, third person omniscient, but also first person at times. Some point of views read like a folk story, and it's just amazing how much everything expands in the world, but still focused on Baru herself. And I support women's wrongs. Baru continues to be an amazingly flawed character, amazingly written. She does so much bad decisions, bad things happen to her. She does bad things to people, and she is getting ahead by the skin of her teeth, and it's so good because, yeah, she's smart. Yeah, she's knows how to manipulate people, but she still has a lot of issues to go through, and also fails a lot, but in a good way, in that she fails a lot and succeeds a lot. And so it's really well written that Baru is this way and the decisions that she does. So really excited to read the third book. At the end of this book, she does end up meeting the people that they want to create a civil war with. She wants to use this secret group of people to take down Fallcrest. I don't know what she's going to do with them. A little issue that some of the world feels too sudden because we're so focused on the traitor in the first book is just one country, and then we immediately expand almost exponentially about cultures and stuff, but it still works because everything feels grounded and very well written. So this has been so far one of my favorite series that I've been reading. A lot of this year, a lot of my 5-star reads have been just series, which is really fun. So, but this is so far the only 5-star that I have this month. But yeah, I absolutely adored this book. Next, I read A Great Act of Love by Heather Rose. This is an arc. This version is specifically an arc, which is the book is came out earlier in January. I only just now got to read it, and I gave it a 3.75 out of 5. It's about a woman, Caroline, in 1839, who moves to Tasmania in Australia to begin a new life, escaping her reputation and because her father had killed somebody. Because he was a little mentally ill because he had fallen and hurt his head, and because of that, he killed someone and got arrested, got sent to the penal colony in Australia. And so this is about Caroline moving to that location, that area, and finding a way to free her father, and through legal means as well, making sure that it's all legal. And I really liked the beginning and like the middle when Caroline is on the boat going to the location. She meets this young child who has been sold by his father to the captain to pay off his father's debts. So he's basically a slave, and so Caroline takes him under her wing and buys his freedom and also adopts him. And I really like her stewardness of this boy Quill, and I really liked Caroline and Quill's relationship because she is helping him be a proper man, and he's growing, and I just really like that aspect. And once she gets to the island, and it's not the island, is it Van Diemen's Land is what it's used to be called, and think it became Tasmania. I'm not fully sure if she's on like the coast and then there's Tasmania, or she's on Tasmania and there's a little island where the her father's prison is. I should have looked that up, but it didn't really matter to me. The people that she meets are really fun, and she's not manipulating people, but she's definitely working on people and pretending to be someone else, using her money that she got through her aunt's criminal network, because her aunt was a criminal. She was able to buy land, and she starts like a winery, and that was really fun as well. But for me, the best part was Caroline working with Quill to help him be a good person and then to grow and be educated and stuff like that. Towards the end, I did not like this ending. I'm not going to say what happens exactly, but it is sort of like the idea of like this story has a lot of realism to it, so the ending is very real to what would have actually happened or what could have happened to Caroline's story, but I just didn't feel like it was a satisfying ending for what we've gotten, right? Like, I compare this to The Henna Artist by Alka Joshi, which is also about a woman escaping a reputation and using her skills to get new reputation, get money, get ahead. And that's what Caroline was doing here, and I really liked that. I really liked that setup of her working with people, and she's not manipulating, but she's definitely convincing, making deals and stuff like that. But it's like, at the end, none of that matters because something happens for it to end, and I just did not like that, which is why it's less than 4 stars for me. It's a 3.75. Did I say that? I forget if I said it or not. 3.75 out of 5. I think also it gets bogged down by points of view. So for like Monster Bar Cormorant has a lot of points of view, and it works because everything will eventually line up and all these agendas will be together. But here, the only point of view that I wanted was Caroline's. We got a lot of point of view from her father, and then like a freed slave in the in the area that she's working with, and both points of view are good. They're nice, but I didn't really care about them so much as I cared for Caroline, Caroline's relationship with Quill, Caroline's business work, and I felt like those points of view bogged down the story. Like, we knew that her father grew up during the French Revolution. We didn't have to see it. And there's moments that are shown in the past as well that at the beginning I wasn't quite into, but then when we get into learning about the criminal network her aunt had, that was kind of fun. But like points of view with her father, points of view with the freed slave, that leads into a conflict that happens towards the end that also gets resolved pretty quickly that I didn't care for. So that all could have been cut, and it would have been better in my opinion. And then fix the ending. Fix the ending. I did not like it at all. So I will not spoil what happens, but like, yeah, like there's a lot of things. Caroline does a lot of things, and it all comes to naught because they're in 1840s seafaring. You can connect the dots. Next, I read The Devil by Name by Keith Rosson, which is the second book in the Fever House duology so far. This takes place 5 years after the events of the Fever House. A severed hand wreaks havoc. It starts this sort of like zombie apocalypse towards the end as well, and this is 5 years after that, so it's like a post-apocalypse story. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I think this second book was not necessary. If the first book just ended as is, then yeah, it's necessary, but the first book did not need to end that way. And this book is not entirely necessary, but it's still pretty good. The same issues that I had with the first book I had with the second book. I had read the first book and I really enjoyed it, but I still give it a 4 out of 5 because there were some things that I had issue with. And I had read the synopsis of the second book, and it did not really make me that excited to read it. It's a flawed concept, but a fun execution, a good execution, which is why it's a 4 out of 5. Had some great moments of horror, a little less than Fever House's, and in terms of quality, lesser than Fever House's quality of horror, but still good moments of horror. And it introduces some new characters that I wasn't totally invested in, and the characters that I was invested in the first book either do not come back because they died in the first book, or they're shafted in a specific way that I did not like. And I also compare it similar to External Forces by Shannon Fay, where my favorite character in the first book, in Innate Magic, was shafted in the second book for stupid plot reasons. Same thing happens here. My favorite character in Fever House gets shafted for stupid plot reasons in this book. And I'm like, I guess, but it works for the story. It makes sense. I just don't like it personally. I really like the climax. It was really fantastical in a horrifying way, which kind of fit but kind of didn't, but I liked it at least, so there's that. And yeah, I just don't really have that strong emotion about this duology. I was really excited. Fever House was a really good book, but it had some issues, and I hope that the issues could have been perfected by this time around. It was about the same, so I don't have that strong emotion about this book. The next book I read was 7 Ways We Lie by Reilly Redgate. And this was a reread from a book. I had read this book. I talked about this book pretty briefly in my clearing my bookshelves, revisiting some books. This was a book that I had read in high school. and I just want to clear it from my shelf and reread it just to be like, should I keep it? Should I give it to my sister? Should I give it away? I set this book up for failure, and it pleasantly surprised me. I give it a 4.25 out of 5. It's about 7 characters, 7 high schoolers who each exemplify, to varying degrees, the 7 deadly sins, dealing with the onset and fallout of a teacher-student relationship scandal that happens in their high school. And I talked about this in the video talking about visiting books. There is a trend in some YA that I've read recently where the main conflict, the main thing that like the blurb talks about gets overridden and oversaged by character relationships, high school drama, YA type books. This happens here where the student-teacher relationship scandal doesn't really go anywhere entirely satisfying, but the actions and reactions of the characters are just amazing. The character relationships are well written. Everyone is very well written, and I had a lot of fun with the experience. What happens in terms of the scandal isn't that amazing, but it's still really good. The central conceit of the 7 Deadly Sins is here at times and isn't. Like Pride, the character who is Pride is probably my favorite character. Didn't really get Pride from him that much. The character who was Greed that's just a thing that he did. He was just a little greedy, but that's it. But the characters for Envy and Wrath exemplified those those deadly sins very, very well. And then Lust, Sloth, and Gluttony were pretty, like, it made sense, but it also didn't really do much. Especially, like, the characters for Gluttony and Lust, I don't know if they can be pretty much switched around about who was who. I'm pretty sure Lust is the character, is the girl who has the teacher-student relationship with. And then Sloth was just the guy who got high all the time, but he stopped getting high after a bit because his parents stopped fighting. It was the 7 Deadly Sins shtick was there at times, and it wasn't there for other times. So I was like, it's whatever. And at the end, there are some like character threads, plot threads that go unanswered, or conflicts that you can see start but are not completed. Like, for example, Pride, his parents start looking at him like, why are you acting out? And then that's not touched on. But overall, I was really happy with how the characters interacted. And like the big like ending of each of the character relationships was really good. And I was just very pleasantly surprised that I really enjoyed this book. And I was thinking, I was like, maybe I can give this to my sister, but definitely when she's much older in high school. And because this is about high schoolers dealing with sex and drugs. So she's right now in middle school. Let's not introduce that to her right now. You know what I mean? Next, I read Starter Villain by John Scalzi, which was a book that I had to read for a book club. And I did not know what to expect from this book. I would not have read this book if it was not for this book club. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I had read John Scalzi's Kaiju Preservation Society about 2-3 years ago. Did not totally enjoy it. I did not like the humorous tone, especially with the really cool concept. Here, there were humorous moments that were supposed to be laugh out loud humorous that I did not like. And then there was more subtle humorous things I really did like that I was like, this is really good. Overall, it was not as funny as it wanted to be, but I still found it very enjoyable. So it's about Charlie, who finds out that his recently deceased uncle is actually a villain, a person who runs a company that creates technologies that are used to disrupt social orders in different ways. And after his uncle died, in his will, he gave most of everything of his villain company to Charlie, and Charlie has to deal with now issues such as unionizing dolphins, hyper intelligent talking spy cats, and terrifying hench persons at his side. While he's because he was also down in his luck, he was about to lose his house. He just has to now be a villain and deal with other villains. And I was really happy with how much thought was placed into the world building. There's long sections about Charlie's financial woes. There's long sections of the supervillain layer island and how it was acquired. Really good. What they are trying to do and how they come about it, the money, the technology, the villainy, really well thought out. And I liked that aspect a lot. I really like Charlie as a protagonist. I feel like stories like this, some characters tend to not do anything except to react. But I like that Charlie, he used to be a journalist, and he used his journalist skills to advance and get ahead and to pay attention and see clues and work through the issues that he's been dealing with. And he's also a very grounded person as well. I think I did not quite like the ending. It felt too rushed and too simple in how everything tied up. And I wanted Charlie to have more friends. Like, he gets all these employees that are working under him, and they like him and they treat him with respect, but he earns their respect alongside hiring them or having them under his payroll, technically. At the end of it, I want him to have more friends because he was friendless. And so he sort of returns to the same where he was at the beginning, with some changes, obviously. But I still wanted a little bit more of connections for Charlie, just like as a personal level, you know? But yeah, like I said, I had read Kaiju Preservation, did not quite enjoy it. But this was definitely more enjoyable than I thought. Also a quick read. I read it in like one day, one shift. So it was pretty good. And then I read Canon by Paige Lewis, which is the book of the month pick for May. And I picked it because of the cover and how really interesting it looks. And then like the synopsis sounded interesting. This is about Yara, a non-binary protagonist who is told by God that they need to go and fight Dominic, the leader of the bad guys, because there's a war happening. And then we have Adrena, who is a prophet of God, who wants to prove God wrong and joins with Harpo, the leader of the good guys, trying to fight Dominic. Yeah, I gave this a 3 out of 5. I think personally it should be lower, but I have to face the biases that I have for this. I should have expected, coming in with such a wacky synopsis, that this book was going to get a little wacky, and it's a little wacky. But it's more surrealist as well. Like, for example, at the very beginning, after God tells Yara to go kill Dominic, Yara has a dream where a spherical angel feeds them stale bread, and then after that, they don't have to eat at all. They will never be hungry again. And then when they wake up, they see a Barnes & Noble receipt from God that he had bought Moby Dick and a journal on, and on the other side, he wrote instructions for them. Part of those instructions is to follow the glowing oysters to the ocean, and as they follow the glowing oysters, the oysters sing to them. Right? Yeah, it's very surrealist. And I personally am not a fan of surrealist work, mainly because it's like a personal thing. I don't think it's not that I don't think surrealism isn't good. It's just I personally don't enjoy it that much. And alongside that, this is a book that critiques Catholicism a lot. And it talks about Yara being kicked out of their home after their parents find out that they're trans. Adrena being a prophet of God and wanting to prove God wrong, and different characters being hurt by God's actions. And a lot of talk about saints as well. Saint Nicholas, Saint Francis. Don't know if those are actual saints or if it's just saints created in this world. A lot of critique of Christianity and Catholicism that I don't understand because I never experienced any of that growing up. So I didn't understand some of the Catholic allusions. There's a lot of surrealism, so there's already a level of not being able to understand what is happening. The world is interesting in that it's a mixture of our real world. There's malls, there's movies, there's radio stations. Like at one point, Yara remembers watching a movie with Keanu Reeves. That is an actual movie. I just forgot the name of the movie, but it stars Keanu Reeves. Actual artists have actual music. Johnny Cage is mentioned at one point, but also there is this medieval war happening between the good guys, capital G, and then capital B bad guys as well, with like spears and swords, and then God is around and has a prophet, right? And so this is just not for me. It's still written interestingly, a lot of interesting details, and I did really like Adrena's storyline, her like wanting to prove God wrong and lying to the people that she's with, saying that she is a prophet of God. Well, she's not lying about being a prophet of God, but she's lying that God sent her to help them, and her dealing with, and also meeting this woman and falling in love with her, and also like, do I follow my mission to prove God wrong, or should I follow this girl who I met on my own? You know what I mean? Really like that. And also Harpo, the leader of the good guys, and Adrena's friendship that eventually grows, and that storyline I like. Yara as a character I also really like. Yara's journey, too surrealist for me. So I can't say that I enjoyed this book, but I can also not say that this book was bad, because it's just not for me. I'm not getting any of it, and I recognize that maybe if I had different experiences, if I had a different appreciation for surrealism, I might have liked it more. But overall, I got this book based on the cover, and I'm a little disappointed. But that's fine. It's not for me. Anyways, those are so far the 8 books that I've read in the month of May, and I will be back to close out this video and the rest of the books that I read in this month. By that time, I will be back from my vacation, so I don't know what's going to change between then and now. I don't know how this layout is going to be either. We'll see. See you soon. Hello, welcome back. It has been a long time, so I don't even remember how I had set up my friends here. But yeah, this is the latter half of my reading wrap up. It's been, I tell you, a long time since the last time. So yeah, I have the books right here is what I'm touching. So it looks like I read a total of 13 books, and I'll talk about the last 5 books that I read. It is a little late into early June, and I'm putting this out a little late, but that's because I just got home from a vacation yesterday, and I'm a little behind, but that's fine. And however, I have already read some books for June, but I'm not talking about those. That's going to be a little annoying, but we're here now. The next book that I read in May was Among the Enemy by Margaret Peterson Haddix, which is the 6th book in the Shadow Children series. Again, dystopia where America, you are illegal if you are a 3rd child, and there are 3rd children who are trying to fight against this corporate. Well, it's not corporate. That's another different type of dystopia, but corrupt government type of conflict, right? In this one, I gave it a 4 out of 5. It was pretty good. We have Matthias, who is one of the legal children that we met in book 3, where the point of view was Nina. And Nina was told, that was among the betrayed, and Nina was told she had to make these 3 children confess that they are third children, and one of them is Matthias, his brother Percy, and his sister Alia. Percy's older than him. No, Matthias is the oldest. That's it, and then Percy and then Alia. Here, Matthias is in a boarding school along with his siblings. This is after they have been placed there to be safe while the rebellion is doing stuff. And coming off of what had happened in the last book with Trey, with stopping the population police from devising a way to trap people and trap third children with fake IDs. They destroyed the fake IDs, and so they have started rounding up a lot more kids to take them to either labor camps or take them to become members of the population police, etc. Matthias is caught up in a whirlwind of events as his school is raided and all the children are taken away, and Percy, and Aaliyah manage to make their truck crash, and Percy and Aaliyah are injured, and as Matthias is trying to help them find some safety, he encounters other population police, and he saves the life of one population police officer who takes him under his wing and helps him become a population police officer himself. And now Matthias has to pretend to be an officer, and he manages to get in the good graces of a really important colonel. I believe it was colonel. The commander, sorry. Well, whatever. It's, the government stuff. And he uses that connection to be able to subvert, is that the right word? Rebel against the population police, right? And I think Tobias is not that compelling of a character. I think compared to the other characters, he does have this thing of he is Christian, and like Aaliyah and Percy and him used to go to church and pray a lot to God, and so he talks to God, quote unquote, a lot, and not in any way that's annoying, but definitely like I'm not used to that type of character because I don't read those type of books. But his relationship with God was not obtrusive, and definitely helped him move forward with what he wants to do in he's basically doing an espionage here again, similar to what Trey was doing, but even more intense because now he's, like I said, under the good graces of this commander, so he has a lot more power. And in a reversal, interestingly, Nina here, he interacts a lot with Nina because she's also an undercover in the population police headquarters, along with Luke and Trey, but we don't encounter them here. But he encounters Nina. Nina's a lot better here than she was in the third book. I did not like the third book at all. I don't think she was a good protagonist for that. But here, she is really good, and I really enjoy that reversal. And like I said, like him having this espionage thing to do is really fun, and I do like the espionage aspect of this book. Spoiler, I guess, the first book that I finished in June was the conclusion of this series. I'll talk more about it then, but this doesn't feel like the penultimate book, unfortunately, but it still serves what it wants to do. I think, I'll talk more about the entire series when I finish it, but yeah, it was good. It was a 4 out of 5. Matthias as a character, but the things he does, pretty cool. The next book that I read was The Lost City of Zed by David Grann. And I wanted to read this book because this is a nonfiction about the Fawcett expedition that disappeared in 1925 looking for the Lost City of Zed. This was covered in the Magnus Archives in episode 133, Dead Horse. Really liked that episode. I've talked a lot about it. But I wanted to read the nonfiction book that it was about it. And I gave this a 5 out of 5. Honestly, it should be a little less. I was teetering between like 4.75, but like looking at it, I have no issues with this book beyond just I'm not a nonfiction reader, and this one surprised me, but there was a point at the very end I was like kind of emotional, but there were some middle parts that lagged, but as a package, I have to say it's a 5 out of 5. Not one of my favorite 5 out of 5s, but definitely like amazingly written book. I like this a lot because it balances different storylines. We have Percy Fawcett, his upbringing, and his the context around him becoming an explorer. He's very instrumental in mapping a lot of the Amazon. There's a map here of his expeditions in the early 1900s. You're not going to see much detail, but this is the map. And then there's another map here for his 1925 expedition. Storyline of Percy Fawcett and everything surrounding context, the Royal Geography Society that funded a lot of people, a lot of British explorers to explore during this time, along with a shorter storyline of one of the many people who tried looking and finding the missing expedition. This one was I should remember, it was Scottish. I think it was kind of short, but I did like it. But he was, I believe, Scottish. Oh no, he's Brazilian. I don't know why. I just thought he was like somewhere that started with an S. I was like either Scottish or Scandinavian. He's just Brazilian. But I think he came from Scotland. So I don't know. Whatever. Storyline of him and his son in 1999 searching for the missing expedition, and then the storyline of David Grann himself, the author, going on his own expedition into the Amazon in the mid-2000s, trying to search for Percy Fawcett. And all three storylines interweave very well in quasi-chronological, but it's cuts in between. And so it was it kept your attention very close. I think I mentioned it. There was some middle parts that lagged, but it does pick up towards the end. And overall, it just has some great writing throughout of David Grann, his research, and the things that he talks about with Fawcett and how he grew up and how he developed and became an explorer and what he wanted to do. All of his prior explorations as well were really interesting. And towards the end, when it's mostly just focused on the disappearance of Fawcett and then Grann's own expedition into the Amazon, really fun, really interesting, really emotional as well. It is just an amazingly written story, nonfiction, and it just makes me want to read more nonfiction. This is very similar in my mind to Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, in that Henrietta Lacks also dealt with multiple different storylines running concurrently, both Henrietta herself, Deborah Lacks, Rebecca Skloot and her investigations, and then like the science progression, that sort of like interweaving storyline. That's what I felt in this book, and I really enjoyed that here. And I was just really satisfied with this book, which is why it's a 5 out of 5. I think emotionally maybe it's a 4.75 or 4.5, but I really cannot find anything wrong that will definitely like knock it a lot of points down. Sure, the middle lags, but it didn't feel like I don't know what could have been fixed there. You know what I mean? So really good. Next, I read Platform Decay by Martha Wells. This is the next, I don't even know, the number 8, I believe, book in the Murderbot series. Yes, number 8 in the Murderbot Diaries series. And this is a 4 out of 5 for me. Overall, my biggest issue is this did not feel that important, quote unquote, because the last two stories, Network Effect and System Collapse, I had to pull up the list here, are like the best in terms of plot, in terms of important things are happening right now. And this is all stemming off from many different things happening in prior stories in Network Effect and System Collapse. With Platform Decay, it's sort of coming off of that, but it feels like just another adventure that it's not that exciting. However, it's still a good execution. It's fun, but it's a little unnecessary in my opinion. Oh, I have them right over here as well. I should have checked that. Yeah, Network Effect and System Collapse. It's those were the best ones in my opinion, or some of the best ones. And then it sort of like drops a little here, but that's fine. So in this story, we have Murderbot trying to save one of Mensha's partners and their family, who have been almost taken in hostage by Barish Estranza, which is the big bad corporate entity that they were dealing with in Network Effect. And so it is trying to save the three of them. they encounter one of the defected corporate officers, I guess, who was one of the main antagonists in Network Effect and System Collapse. It encounters her, and she tells it that she has family that is being held hostage as well. And so now, oh no, Murderbot has to deal with the three that it wants to save, and then the family that Leonide, I forget how to say her name. Leonide, yes, that is her name. And her family that she wants to is held hostage by the company, right? In the prose, I do like that there are moments where, because of everything that has happened, Murderbot has allowed itself to have this therapy program that is like an emotional check. And every once in a while, there's like parentheses, emotional check, and it's Murderbot trying to just talk through what it is feeling. And I do like that a lot. It adds another dimension of complexity and emotion to the prose, and I do like that a lot. The characters, besides Murderbot, are fine, but there are more children in the story that add a bit more complexity. There's at least 2 teenagers, 1 child that Murderbot has to deal with, and that adds a bit more complexity. That's a little interesting. But overall, the things that happen are pretty standard. My thing with Murderbot, which is not a diss, nor is it a praise, is that Murderbot feels pretty powerful and unbound, but there are still like Martha Wells still finds ways to make Murderbot feel limited, or like trying to solve a problem. And so I like that. I like that she keeps surprising me with how Murderbot cannot do something. You know what I mean? So I've been happy with that. And I thought that the story was sort of just going to end around now, but it looks like it's going to continue, which I'm like, I mean, I guess. Oh, yeah. But I had pre-ordered this when I heard that it came out. It's like recently published, and I finished it in one day as well. I was like, yeah, sure, let me just read this one. It's pretty good. I did enjoy my time. But I think it felt a little unnecessary, unfortunately. Next book that I read was Novice by Taran Matharu, which is the first book in the Summoner trilogy. This was one of the books that I talked about in my revisiting books video. I'll have it linked somewhere. And it is a book that I have had since like high school, I want to say. I think it like, I checked my Goodreads. It said that I had read it in 2020, but that was when I started Goodreads, but I haven't marked that I read it specifically in 2020. And I was like, okay, I guess it was early college, right? Not that I remembered much of anything. There were some parts that I did remember, interestingly, like small details that I was like, oh yeah, I remember something along these lines, but whatever. This, I gave a 3.5 out of 5. We have Fletcher, who is a blacksmith's apprentice. He's also an orphan. He discovers he has the power to summon demons and is taken to he goes to a academy that helps train summoners, that these people that can summon demons. And he is embroiled in the society that is in a constant war with orcs. And they have a quasi maybe war going to happen, or about to happen, or has happened, with elves on one side, on the other side of the border, and then they have like dwarves as well that they are subjugated. They're a little have less rights than humans do. And I thought this was fine, I guess. It was well written enough. Fletcher is a really good protagonist, because in these types of fantasy YA books, you need to have, like, you don't need to have, but a lot of times the protagonists are, audience stand-ins. How do I explain this world pretty quickly, but make it feel natural? Oh, this character doesn't know much about the world because he's been an orphan in a rural location up in the north, so he doesn't know about what's happening, so we learn alongside with him. However, a lot of the times, those audience stand-ins tend to be a little flat and not fully characterized, but Fletcher has been fully characterized here in a way that I really enjoy, and you can really tell who he is, because he pushes to have friendships and is working hard, and so he has a fully fledged out character while still being a really good audience stand-in. There are some unique ideas here because this is very inspired by, I think it said it was Pokemon meets Lord of the Rings. Oh, it was also originally a story on Wattpad. I remember that. Well, it says here at the front. It started as Wattpad. I believe it was like labeled Pokemon meets. Oh, it's on Goodreads. Pokemon meets Lord of the Rings, which I'm like, I guess maybe I don't know so much Pokemon. It felt more like they can summon demons, right? And you have a certain power level, and you can say like your power level like 7, so that means you can control a level 5 demon and a level 2 demon, or just one level 7. Those levels don't change. Your level might grow, but those demons levels don't change. The only Pokemon thing ish here is that you get to control a demon, but it felt more similar to maybe Philip Pullman, the Golden Corral, Jesus, Golden Compass with the Daemons, similar name, but also like it's the one that they in Golden Compass they don't change. They change when they're young, they're children. They change shape, but it's the same demon. Here, these demons aren't characterized. They're sort of like animals. They're sort of like pets, like Pokemon in a way, maybe. But yeah, it's labeled as that, and there's some unique ideas here with those demons. Also, with the world building, elves are not immortal, but they are live long enough. I'm like, okay, that's consistent with a lot of other lore, but also some of the dwarf lore is also pretty unique. Like some dwarven women wear veils so that they cannot be seen. Similar to like Muslim in terms of they want to get married for love and do not want to get married because of lust. But it's not like completely covered. It's just like a veil. And then humans have some interesting political stuff happening as well, and so that's pretty interesting. I didn't get that much lore about the orcs, but they felt less like a big scary monster and more like big scary race of human, kinda. I don't know if there's. I can totally see them introducing like a half orc-ish person, like half orc, half human. In the next series. Spoiler alert, I'm not going to continue this series. I think I'm fine. I did not like how it ended. I didn't like the third act. The third act, I'm kind of sick and tired. Not that I haven't consumed a lot of it. I just do not quite enjoy tournament arcs. There's a tournament arc at the end of here that was very predictable. I think tournament arcs tend to be very predictable, and I didn't quite enjoy it. And the third act moved pretty quickly and very rushed. And it ended at a cliffhanger that I was like, oh my god, you have to read the second book. And I'm like, I don't want to. Thank you. And yeah, at least I was able to reread it finally and get it off my shelf. I'm just going to give it away. It doesn't have that wider appeal that I think my sister would like. And I don't want to keep it on my shelf. I'm not going to continue the series. Maybe if I have very strapped for books. Like I don't have any books. I can go to the library and find the second book. But that's not going to happen anytime soon. So I don't care enough right now to continue the series. Oh, and I forgot the few things that I remembered. I did remember that there was a dwarf and elf friendship here that was really important. Somehow I remembered that, but that was pretty much it. And then I think like the demon had some like moments I remembered, but it wasn't anything big, and I don't know why I read it in the first place. But yeah, it's fine. Oh, also I had read it, so this was a few days before my trip, before my flight over to the Pacific Northwest, and I was looking at the books that I needed to read and wanted to read. I was like, I have a space of where I can read a book. And so I was like, I can read this book in like a day and a half or something like that. So I did. It was not part of my TBR, pulled it randomly. It's no longer. Can you still see it? Hey, Lily, stop. There we go. So yeah, that's another book off my list. And finally, the last book that I read was Caliban's War by James S. A. Corey, the second book in the Expanse series. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5. Technically, I did enjoy it more than Lost City of Z. However, there are some issues here that I can totally see how to fix. This continues to get its. I don't know if it would be better. The first book I also gave a 4.5. It is definitely a good, really good sequel, expanding on the lore, expanding on the world. We are introduced to Ganymede, a breadbasket of the outer planets, which is like a central area that gets endangered by the protovirus that they have to deal with in this story. Ganymede, at first, I was really excited because it felt like we were going to stay in Ganymede for most of the entirety of the story. And Ganymede was a really interesting setting, and I think that would have been a great contrast to the first book, Leviathan Wakes, which went to like 3 or 4 different planets, all of them really good, but they kept bopping back and forth. Here, I wanted it to stay in Ganymede, a good contrast, but we did leave Ganymede for a hot minute, and a lot of it was directly in space, which was good enough. But then the last location, Io, was not as well detailed and wasn't as fun, and it felt very rushed and quick, and I did not quite enjoy that aspect. I wish it just stayed in Ganymede and added a bit more stuff in Ganymede so that we could still have like a similar ending of the story of this book, at least. I really liked the new characters. One of my issues, not my issues, but one of my wishes from the first book is that Holden's crew of Holden and Naomi and Amos and Alex, the 4 of them, I had to remember them in my the 4 of them, pretty good. However, I feel like we needed a 5th person to round things out, 5-man band. Miller served a little bit of that, but Miller only really interacted with Holden, and so the rest of them didn't really have anything to interact with. Here, we're introduced to Praxidike, I believe that's how you pronounce it, who is a local in Ganymede whose daughter disappears and is kidnapped by shady organization. And he enlists Holden's help to try to find Holden and his crew to try to find his daughter. And Prax adds a really interesting 5th person to this group because now he is the smart one. It's not that the rest of them are like dumb, but he adds a level of intellect that they don't have on that crew, and he has good interaction with Holden and Amos a lot, and not so much, or actually he does have some good moments with Alex. So adding Prax in helped with that dynamic a lot, and I was really happy with that. And also, I like how we began to expand the points of view, because in the first book it was just Holden and Miller, but now we have Holden, Prax, Bobby, who is a Marine from Mars, who gets mixed up in all the politics, and Asavarala, who is a UN politician. She's like the assistant to something or another. I never fully understood what it was, but she was really cool. Christian Asavarala, assistant to the Undersecretary of Executive Administration. But she has a lot of power. She's really powerful, and I really, really enjoyed her political manipulations and Bobby's own story as well. Eventually, all of the characters get together when they're in the space section. Also, that's another thing, because they were in Ganymede for a good part. Whenever they were with Bobby or with Asabrala, it was all in Earth, which is the first time in the series. So it's the second book, but it's the first time that we are actually in Earth, which is really fun, in the UN building. Not much of the setting was that interesting there compared to the other locations, but at least it was a different location, and it felt different. It felt like I was in Coruscant, And also good expansion of the world, because Bobby, who is from Mars, grew up in Mars, learned about Earth, also sort of like a audience stand-in, and so we learn about Earth from her, through her eyes, and how it has changed in the future. Really fun. But yeah, so Asavarala and Bobby have really great interactions, because Asavarala is dealing with a lot of political machinations, while Bobby is I think Asavarala is an unstoppable force, and Bobby is an unmovable object. And when they interact and they are working together, so fun. I really like. There's tension there, but it's fun tension and not bad tension. and then they work together, and then the two of them meet up with the five of them, and that group is really fun as well. And I just really enjoyed these new characters added onto, and I hope that I do have the third book. I did buy the third book. I haven't been able to page through it, but I do hope that the three of them return. I have less hope of Prax returning because from what I've seen, his story's ended here. His, spoiler, I guess he find his daughter. This is the second book, whatever. His story feels like it ended, but definitely not Bobby's, and definitely not Acevedo's. I definitely can see Bobby joining the group, which would add another strongman type because Amos is pretty much a strongman as well. But it would add some romantic tension that would be interesting between her, Amos, and Alex. Now, on to another thing that I did not quite enjoy, the drama here. I did not quite enjoy it between Holden and Naomi because Holden is a bit, not traumatized per se, but definitely affected by the events of the first book. And so he's become very similar to Miller, where he's very shoot first, ask questions never. And Naomi is not liking that. And there's some drama there. I think that Holden's reactions to the first book's events and how he's changed is good. But the drama between him and Naomi felt a bit clunky and not that interesting. And it was resolved not quickly, but definitely in a way that I was like, okay, are we done here? We're good? Okay, good. We're moving on? Awesome. Because I didn't really care about that. And I do like their relationship, but I just didn't quite enjoy that drama. And so that took a bit off for me as well. But overall, this was I was planning to do a vlog for my trip, but I completely forgot to do it after the second day. I did record an intro, but I'm not going to do that anymore. Anyways, this is a book that I had to read for this month. I knew that I was going to have at least 8 hours of wait time on my flight to the Pacific Northwest. So I was like, I'm going to read this book first. On that first flight, and I did. I finished it on it was 2 different flights, and I was really happy and proud of myself that I was able to finish it. And I started another book. I guess we'll talk about it. I did start reading, and I finished it already, but I did start reading the last book in the Shadow Children series in May, but I finished it in June. So I'll talk about it in the June wrap up. Even though I read the majority in June anyway, so I just feel like that's the right way to do that. But yeah, this really good continuation, and the ending was really cool. The ending felt like something that should happen in a later book. This is a 9-book series so far, or 8. What? I thought it was 9. I'm seeing 8 on the back here. But the 8th book being Tiamat's Wrath, but maybe there was a 9 that published after this was printed. I'm not sure. Whatever. The event of the last act, where Venus, which has been bombarded by the proto-molecule, creates some eldritch being and leaves the planet. That felt like something that should be happening towards the end of the series, but at the beginning, that is really cool. I'm really excited to what's going to happen in Abaddon's Gate. So I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, those are all the books that I read in the month of May. That's 13 books. So I had done a tarot TBR video. I'll link it somewhere around here, and a lot of these books were chosen using tarot reading cards. That was really interesting. I really liked them, so I'm going to continue doing the tarot reading to get the next set of TBR books that I have to read, and go from there. The tarot books were Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Act of Love, Fever House, Devil by Name, and where is it? The City of Zed. And those were probably, I wouldn't say those were the peak ones, but it was really fun to switch back and forth between different types of genres. And obviously, Trader Bar Cormorant, Expanse, really good, amazing. Very surprised with 7 Days We Lie. Say it correctly. 7 Ways We Lie. I'm sorry, Reilly Redgate. Some good quick books in between. This is a good reading month, a long reading month as well, especially because I'm in the middle of the week in June. Anyways, thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. If you've read any of these books, if you've heard of any of these books, please let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share with your friends. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to be passionate. And I'll see you later. Say goodbye, Sandy, and say goodbye, Hey Lily Kyoko.